Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I am Papa Balandong, a CETAR Europa member. We are so happy having you. I just want to say thank you so much to Kristi Alcouffe, Benjamin Solomon, as well to Pamela. Just to say why we organized this webinar with this subject. As you know, we say research has shown that psychological safety and inclusive leadership are linked to improve team performance, as team members are more motivated and capable of working efficiently through common goals. In CETAR Europa, we encourage open dialogue. We demonstrate as well vulnerability. We recognize the value of diversity. We provide support and research. We are doing as well continuous learning and development. Thanks once again to Kristi, Benjamin, and Pamela. And Kristi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Papa Bala, and welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you've had a good day so far today, wherever you are joining from. We are so happy to be here with you right now for this webinar that's all about achieving inclusive leadership through team psychological safety. My name is Kristi Alcouffe. I'm a professional certified coach, and I've been working independently in France in the field of professional development for the past 25 years. I'm originally from Connecticut, the northeast of the US. I came to study in France. I met a Frenchman, and we have lived in both France and in the US. We've raised 2 children in France. And today I also have a third country, which is Thailand, because I have 2 lovely daughters-in-laws. So we have many people to thank. First of all, Pamela Strawgate for connecting us with Papa Bala, and Papa Bala for offering us this opportunity and also his availability throughout the preparation of the webinar. Thank you all for attending, listening, and taking part. I've been saying we a lot, so now I'm going to hand it over to my co-pilot today, my friend and colleague, Benjamin Solomon.
Thank you, Kristi, and hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar about inclusive leadership through team psychological safety. Please keep in mind that leadership is not only for leaders. Everyone can work on and show leadership. So my name is Benjamin Solomon. I'm 55. I'm American, and I've been living and working in France for over 25 years. I'm a certified professional coach, and one of my passions is working alongside Kristi to support teams to collaborate and develop into higher performing teams. Thank you for being here with us. And I see some familiar faces, and it's great to see you. And I also see plenty of people I've never met before, so thank you for coming. A special thanks also to Peter Coellier, founder of Team as One, and who initially certified Kristi and I as master team psychological safety facilitators. Many of the slides we will be sharing here come from Peter's extensive research into the subject. And so we are very curious. Could you kindly share in the chat box what interested you most about coming to this event?
I see. Learning more about the topic. Okay.
To get a refresher, inclusion and diversity are key topics. Great. Yeah, lots of reasons.
Topic. Subject, I believe, is vitally important.
Team coaching, inclusive leadership. Concrete recommendations.
Okay. Improve skills when facilitating workshops.
Okay, thank you. Kristi, what about our intention tonight?
Right. So our intention is to raise your awareness about team psychological safety, which is a highly important but sometimes misunderstood concept. And what makes our approach unique and impactful is that we're bringing psychological safety to the team level. And by the way, to clear up any confusion, team psychological safety is not about being nice, as you will discover shortly. And you might imagine that there is a strong link between team psychological safety and inclusive leadership. What's certain is that without psychological safety in the workplace, diversity cannot be expressed and inclusion can't really be experienced. But we'll be coming back to that in a moment.
Yeah. So we're going to be asking you to use the chat box periodically throughout the webinar. And here's another opportunity to use the chat box. We'd like to encourage an open and positive mindset for this event. So let's all share a little bit about ourselves. Again, in the chat box, could you kindly share something for which you are grateful these days? Feel free to take a minute to reflect before sharing. And I'm personally grateful for the sun here in Angers, France. The sun is out and it's just been a glorious day.
And I'm grateful for my health.
See health, good conversation today, connecting with new inspiring people, kindness of friends. Spring in Berlin, great.
Ooh.
New challenges and connection. Newborn grandson, congratulations. So what's happening with the program, Kristi?
We have a rich program, so we're going to be helping you to gain a clear understanding of what team psychological safety truly means. We are going to be digging deeper into why this is so essential in today's workplace. We're going to be looking at what prevents team psychological safety from being present and working properly. You are going to be introduced to one of the 7 key elements of TPS. And we're going to be discussing together some actionable strategies to cultivate and ensure the ongoing team psychological safety wherever you work or wherever you are. And we'll end up with a Q&A. So there is, of course, a lot more that we would love to get into. This is a taster, and we are beginning to raise your awareness. We are trying to make this, as you've seen, as interactive as possible. Heads up, we are going to be asking you to go into breakout rooms in a little bit. And we're going to be asking you to participate through chat and also unmute. And Papa Bala and Pamela will let us know if there are any personal questions that we don't catch.
Yes, and thank you all for your indulgence. Periodically, we'll be using the acronym TPS for Team Psychological Safety. So, okay, so before getting into the heart of our webinar around inclusive leadership through TPS, we'd like to briefly share our perspective of the bigger picture when it comes to the world in which we work, in which teams work, and what our clients are asking of us. Indeed, there's growing complexity and interdependence. Now, this is not new. However, it's been accelerating, and it's accelerating in a cultural sense as well, as teams are becoming more and more multicultural. It stands to reason, therefore, that with such complexity and interdependence and multiculturalism, we need to be listening to every voice in order to solve the problems and challenges which we're facing and which lie ahead. So as complexity and interdependence grow, we observe a greater need to collaborate. It's no longer enough for teams to simply coordinate and cooperate. No doubt coordination and cooperation are essential among team members. However, solving complex, urgent, and real problems requires true collaboration among team members. How then can we reach high team performance in such a context of growing complexity and interdependence? Indeed, our clients want results. Team performance is key no matter what performance they're striving for. It's at the top of their wish list.
Yeah, so we really believe that there is a lot of untapped potential when it comes to teams, especially. And many people say they understand that teams are crucial to their success. A lot of us work in teams a majority of our time, and we know the concept of collaboration, but often the question is how to get started. And we wanted to share this quote from Steve Jobs, who was not particularly known for his soft skills, but even he said, great things in business are never done by one person. They're done by a team of people. So this info is probably not new to you, but perhaps you haven't given it a lot of thought. It is important to think about teams, team development. We all know teams are important, sure. So what? What do you do with that?
So speaking about team development, most of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time, corporate training is for individual leadership development and very little on specific team development. Somehow we believe that if we develop our leaders, we will end up with developed teams, that this will happen automatically. However, this is not how it works. It's simply not the same as creating a team and developing it. This is hoping for the best rather than designing something specifically for a team and its development. And this is a quote that we like, which comes from Peter Coelier's book, The Untapped Team Advantage. We assume everybody knows what teams are about, but teams need development too. So it's important to ask our clients what they're really doing to help teams to work together and collaborate together. Now, this comes from a study that was done by an organization called Team Coaching International, and they found that less than 10% of teams rate themselves as high-performing teams. There's a real need for supporting companies around team development. And now this is good news for us. There's lots of potential there for coaches, for consultants, for trainers. But despite their efforts, companies are really struggling to go about growing their teams. So we have now set the stage regarding the status of teams and team development in the complex, interdependent, and multicultural world in which we live and work today. Let's now begin to unpack team psychological safety and see how it fits into this equation. Indeed, what is team psychological safety, Kristi?
Okay, so to understand what it is and where it comes from, we're going to take a very brief look at a bit of history on the subject. And as Pamela pointed out when she followed our program, I need to preface this by saying that we have many references from around the world, but we're going to be focusing on research from North America. So we can talk about some key players, Abraham Maslow, who initially explored human psychological needs, and the term psychological safety emerged at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, in the 1960s, emphasizing its role in aiding employees through organizational changes. and then Professor William Kahn at BU, Boston University, who linked psychological safety to employee commitment. And then in 1999, it was Amy Edmondson of Harvard University who introduced the concept of team psychological safety in her research on medical errors in hospitals. And contrary to expectations, she found that the best teams reported more errors, leading her to realize that the open discussion of errors fosters learning and then improves performance. So to finish with the story part of this webinar, we're going to tell you briefly about a very interesting study.
Yeah. So this comes from Google. And Google wanted to understand why some of their teams were doing great while others were struggling, all in the same company, all with the same culture. How is this possible? So through their project called Project Aristotle, Google studied over 180 teams from all around the world over a 2-year period between 2012 and 2014. And they assumed that they would find the solution by looking at who was on the best performing teams. For example, how many women were on those teams, how many men were on those teams, the diversity of those teams, the age of the members of those teams. And in the end, it turned out that it didn't matter so much who was on the team, but rather what were the team norms. And just to mention 2 of them that were very important, one was conversational turn-taking, and the other one was the ability to intuit through voice and nonverbal gestures how people felt. Indeed, the #1 factor by far which determined how well a team performed at Google was psychological safety. Now, Google published their findings in December of 2015 in the New York Times. And so Google found the answer, right? Well, no. They simply rediscovered and validated what Amy Edmondson had already worked on 15 years earlier. So Kristi, in order to better define what team psychological safety is, let's first share what it's not.
Well, it's definitely not about personalities or being nice.
And it's not the same as trust either, although trust is important in order to reach team performance. Trust is a dyadic concept between 2 people, whereas team psychological safety is found at the level of the group. Simply said, trust is where I give the benefit of the doubt to somebody, whereas team psychological safety is where others give me the benefit of the doubt. Team psychological safety is not about lowering performance standards either. However, the table on the right shows that team psychological safety and performance standards are linked, with both team psychological safety and performance standards, when they are high, if you look in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, this is where a team is in a learning zone, where there's fun and performance, and where the attitude is, how can we perform even better?
And it's definitely not about the organization. This lives at the level of the team. So we are going to go back to Amy Edmondson and take a look at Amy Edmondson's definition for team psychological safety. And that is a shared understanding by members of a team that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. So the question is, what is an interpersonal risk? Taking an interpersonal risk, it's something that we do or that we say that leads to us potentially looking ignorant, incompetent, disruptive, or negative.
What else do we mean by interpersonal risks? Well, one example is saying you don't agree with someone on the team and voicing this. So although your intention in saying that you don't agree with someone's intention, with somebody's idea, is positive, that is, you want to help the team find the best solution to a problem, for example, there's a risk that it might be perceived negatively. So what are some other examples of behaviors of interpersonal risk-taking that you can think of? Feel free to put them in the chat box. And you can reflect on that for a minute, in addition to disagreeing.
Ooh, yeah, saying no. That's right. Saying you made a mistake. Ooh, big one. Right? Speaking up against authority. Saying we should look for more solutions. Yes, yes, yes. Presenting one's ideas, saying you don't understand. Ooh, yep, yep.
Saying you don't know something.
Yeah. You got it.
Disagreeing.
Yeah.
Great. So here is a non-exhaustive list of behaviors that constitute possible interpersonal risks in a team. And as we saw earlier, when members of a team give the benefit of the doubt to the person taking the interpersonal risk, that is, when they see the positive intention behind the behavior and encourage it for the good of the team, well, the sky is the limit in terms of how the team can perform.
All right, so here we go. This is Amy Edmondson's model. This is the essence of why we're talking about all of this. Each of these leads to the next. So we have the team psychological safety that helps create the learning environment, which in turn creates a performance environment. If the team is learning, then we can do it better next time. So everyone gets all excited about team psychological safety and they lose sight of the reason it's important. It's because it's helping us, it's leading us to the higher performance, whatever that is.
And so here is the team psychological safety model which Peter Coellier developed based on Amy Edmondson's research. And we refer, Kristi and I, we refer to this as the Parthenon. So as on the previous slide, we see that team psychological safety leads to team learning, which then leads to team performance. Now, Amy Edmondson, in her research, speaks about 5 major leverage areas of team psychological safety, which, when developed, can help teams reach top performance. And they are symbolized here on Peter Coellier's model by the 7 pillars. And these leverage areas, are also expressed in images behind Kristi and behind me. These are the leverage areas, the symbols. And in addition to the 7 major leverage areas of team psychological safety, Amy Edmondson also speaks about 5 foundations or antecedents without which developing TPS proves to be a big challenge. And these are symbolized here on Peter Coellier's model by the 5 foundational stones situated under the 7 pillars. So this is the complete model. If you remember this, you will remember just about everything we're going to speak about during this talk. So we will be exploring one of the 7 leverage areas now, accepting diversity or embracing diversity. That is, people on this team never reject others for being different. As you may imagine, this is particularly crucial when it comes to inclusive leadership. However, when a member of a team makes an interpersonal risk, which requires other team members to open up to different ways of thinking and doing, this can be a challenge for some team members. Indeed, if the positive intention behind the interpersonal risk-taking is not understood or accepted, it can generate negative behaviors, negative actions, negative thoughts, and negative feelings.
Okay, so it is time for some breakout rooms. So first step, we are asking you to imagine that you are confronted with a challenge. You're on a team where accepting diversity is a problem. So what behaviors, actions might you be observing? And if you might want to take a screenshot of this slide. So first thing you're going to be doing in your breakout room, spending a few minutes on listing these characteristics, behaviors, what is being said, the symptoms that are typical in a team where this element, accepting diversity, is a problem. Now that's quite negative, so a couple of minutes on that. The second step is we would like you to discuss the remedies. You just go to the next slide, please.
Yep.
Thank you. So more important, what do we do? Imagine you are asked to come up with some ideas for this team to help them address this particular issue of accepting diversity. And you will also have time to do that. You're going to be focusing on your proposals to address this issue. So you're going to have a total of 10 minutes. Is that clear? Any questions? And we want you, thank you, Pamela, for putting that in the chat. Have fun in your breakout rooms. First, what are the symptoms? And secondly, the remedies.
Just need a minute, Kristi, to finish up.
Is that clear that was clear for everybody?
Just about there. Thank you for your patience. Oh.
And be prepared to share when you come back. Share your thoughts.
Okay, we're all good.
Pause the recording when we go into breakouts, please.
Okay, thank you.
See everybody in 10 minutes.
Not take part. Okay, that's fine. We have someone who can't take part in a breakout room. That's fine.
And pause the recording.
Yes, please.
Same for me. I'm not able to talk. Okay, no problem, Bettina.
Ben, are you able to pause the recording?
Ah, sorry. I wasn't aware that I was. Okay. Let's see. I'm sure I can. Let me just pause recording. Here I
On
go.
the upper left corner, you can do it, or at the bottom.
Okay.
Okay, yes, you're absolutely right. People are back. Fantastic. So welcome back. We can all imagine that we can all imagine the symptoms that you've come up with around this issue, and thank you for taking the time to reflect on that. However, since we have limited time, we're more interested in hearing about your ideas for remedies. So what did you come up with in terms of remedies? And for this, are we asking people to unmute, Kristi, or the chat box?
Sure.
Yeah.
So if you have something you'd like to say, why don't you raise your hand if you want to say something from your group, and then we can call on you in order. So you can share with us what your group discussed.
Any remedies? Who would like to
Matthew
share?
wants to share. He's raising his hand. I can see it.
Physically raising, okay. Because you can also use the function in the reactions to raise your hand, because if we can't see the entire screen, we might miss you physically raising.
Sorry, yeah, sorry. Isn't that a brilliant example? I raised my hand, I did the human body thing. There we go. Just a quick one. Solutions. Interrupt your own bias, which comes from doubting difference, and through your own bias. Working on yourself, just the many ways that you move from self to us. So we're cultural individuals to teams. So we had the clever idea, a process, listening to other people first, promoting forms of dialogue, and then getting into crucial conversations and debates across difference to reconcile difference. So that was our contribution to solutions.
Thank you so much. By the way, have you read that book, Crucial Conversations?
Absolutely.
Yeah, great book. Thank you.
And there's stuff coming in the chat box as well. Joe says, I would teach the team all about how to have good dialogue and how to facilitate it. And this includes every element of TPS.
Thank you. And Matthew, can I go back to you just for a moment? Interrupting biases or being aware of these biases, any hints about how to do that?
Oh my, well, yes. I used to teach a course on this. So it's informing yourself of what they might be, going through the protected characteristics or other things, working out your position, doing your Harvard IAT and finding where your dodgy zone is. You can't change them, you can't switch them off, but you can have early warning awareness and then counteract, step aside, smile, change, include, invite, debate, be a better person.
Thank you so much. Would you mind putting the reference for that test in the chat?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. I did that, and
yeah, so
I was shocked.
You have to be fairly brave. It's all good.
Yeah.
Omer put in the chat box acknowledging the ways in which we are similar and different as a step to accepting diversity.
Yeah, great.
Okay, we're going to move right along to what then promotes team psychological safety and why is it essential? So we know that accepting and encouraging interpersonal risk-taking is key to developing TPS. And teams that have a high level of TPS tend to learn more quickly together, which allows them to reach high performance at a quicker pace. And so, again, what promotes TPS and why is it essential? So one thing that promotes TPS is the freedom to propose original ideas. And why is this essential? Because it brings innovation and creativity. What promotes TPS? Letting others be seen and heard as they are. And this is essential because it creates engagement and it also creates employee retention. And what promotes TPS? Making it safe to disagree. And it's essential because it creates a sense of belonging. And the list goes on and on and on. And we're curious to know what other examples can you think of, and kindly share them in the chat box. What promotes TPS?
Creating conditions, I'm reading in the chat, conditions to make a safe space. Joe, would you like to elaborate on that? Creating the conditions.
Well, everything that creates a safe space, and we talk about all of this, don't we? Being open, active listening, always, accepting diversity, and creating that space that will facilitate more.
Thank you.
It's a process, an ongoing dynamic process. Like
Thank you very
everything.
much. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Omer mentioned the leader practicing humility, and we're going to be coming to, we're going to be speaking about leader behavior briefly and shortly.
Oops.
Okay.
So we are going to, thank you so much for all of your, everything that you're putting in the chat there. Agreeing on inclusive language. Wow. Yep. That's a whole nother webinar.
Optimism.
Laughter, smiles, optimism. Yeah. Great, great, great. Thank you so much.
So we've explored briefly what promotes TPS. What about what stops it?
Right. So what are some of the obstacles encountered in the day-to-day running of a company or an organization that generate a feeling of psychological insecurity? So this comes directly from Amy Edmondson, but I'm going to ask, I don't know, I'll ask Matthew here. Matthew, when you got up this morning, did you say to yourself, I can't wait to go to work and look incompetent?
Well, I was waiting for someone else to point out my incompetence. No, I would rather like to prepare to avoid humiliation and shame.
Okay, thank you. Well, it turns out nobody jumps out of bed in the morning because they can't wait to get to work to look ignorant, negative, incompetent, or intrusive, right? And the good news is that this is very easy to deal with, and we are all really good at it. So this is called impression management. You don't want to appear ignorant, so what happens? You don't ask any questions. You don't want to appear negative, so you don't criticize the status quo. You don't want to look incompetent, so you don't admit your errors. And you don't want to look or appear intrusive, so you don't propose any ideas. This is natural for all of us to hold back our ideas, hesitate to ask questions, and not dare to disagree with the boss. It's also called social masking. And unfortunately, given this tendency, the free exchange of ideas and concerns and questions is regularly hindered far more than most leaders realize. And the problem is that at every one of these moments, every time we abstain, we are depriving ourselves and our colleagues from these small moments of learning and our diversity. We're not coming up with new ideas. We're so busy managing impressions that we're not helping to create a better team. So reversing this requires a lot of effort and focus. It's about helping people develop new beliefs and behaviors. This isn't easy and it's not natural, but the effort, of course, pays off. And a university professor by the name of Patricia Riddell, who works at the University of Reading, she sums it up. And she says this notion of impression management, let's imagine for a second, well, she says, when we don't feel safe, we waste a lot of energy trying to protect our image at work. So imagine for a second how we could use that energy differently to innovate and to create value and simply give our best if we felt safe.
So who else has a critical role in supporting teams to develop new behaviors around team psychological safety? And Omer alluded to this in the chat box earlier. Indeed, the leader behavior I mean, we're now going to look at a leader's behavior and how it impacts team psychological safety in a team. Leader behavior is, if not the most important foundation of the TPS model, one of the most important foundations. Now, for leader behavior, we'd like to hear from you first. From your actual experiences, what kind of behaviors have you observed from yourself as a leader or from other leaders which instill the team psychological safety element of accepting or embracing diversity? And we'll do this in 2 steps. We're going to give you 1 minute of reflection, and then we'll ask you to share your ideas in the chat box. So kindly take a minute just to reflect. I'm going to go back 1 second to the previous slide, just to point out that we have the 7 leverage areas here, and we're exploring one, which is embracing diversity. And at the bottom, we have the 5 foundational stones, one of which is leader behavior. And so having a leader who encourages team psychological safety is going to impact the team reaching team psychological safety. And so the idea here is just to think about, in your own experience as a leader, or what you've seen in other leaders that has instilled team psychological safety on a team.
Now we
So
have some comments,
Yeah.
Ben, like active listening, strategic questioning, hearing out and fully expanding on the words of a critic, asking everyone's opinions, observing team members and sense when someone seems eager to participate, humility, being curious rather than judgmental, open-mindedness, respect, empathy, active listening, inclusive decision-making, vulnerability, forgiving, not sweating the small stuff, self-compassion, being mindful of others' needs that are different than mine because of their gender, religion, personality, role modeling, incentivizing different options, support, address biases, celebrating differences, fair opportunities, many different behaviors.
Pointing a rotating role of a challenger. Zero tolerance for discrimination.
Thank you. Wonderful comments.
Would you like to complement that, Kristi?
Yes, and then I'm going to ask someone if they're interested in saying something more about something I see in the chat box. Yeah, so this is from one of Amy Edmondson's books called Teaming. And okay, of course, inclusive leaders play a crucial role in promoting the psychologically safe team. Inclusive leaders need to actively encourage, as you all just put in the chat, the speaking up, the reporting of mistakes, and this requires specific leadership actions, as you can see on this list. For example, inviting participation, setting boundaries, yeah. And we do in the chat, we had a comment, if I can find it again, about the impression management being culturally, and I can't find it now.
Culturally colored, from Magdalena.
Would you like to say a little bit more about that? I'm intrigued.
Yes, sure. Thank you. So I was wondering, I mean, I think the response in the chat group was overwhelmingly yes. So it kind of answered my my suspicion, but the way you explained it, it sounded like it obviously varies between cultures, and you would have culturally imprinted distance to it, if I may say so.
Yeah.
So depending on cultural backgrounds or contexts, it might be less or more that I would say maybe there's a bit of a scale, if it makes sense.
Thank you. Yeah, would anyone else like to comment on that? Go ahead, Pamela.
So if I understand what you wanted to say, Magdalena, for instance, a couple of concrete examples might be and I'm not an expert on all cultures, but from what I've heard, understood, from colleagues and research, certain Asian cultures, for instance, showing vulnerability would definitely not be a good way to manage your image. You're supposed to be the expert and have the answers. It's very hierarchical. In Germany or Northern Germany, perhaps, smiling and inviting is not taken very seriously in a business environment. You need to present yourself. Your image is much more serious. Business is business. After business is another story, after hours. So things like that, there's not all of the things that we might tend to think that a lot of things that went in the chat would not present a good impression necessary depending on culture. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
No, I think especially the 5 elements which you listed, or 5 the 5 elements of the they each mean something else in different cultural contexts.
Yeah, totally agree.
Thank you, and thank you, Pamela, for bringing it to particular examples.
So we've come to the actionables section of our talk. And remember, we're only giving you a taster here. So what can you do as a team leader, a team member, a coach, a consultant, a trainer when embracing diversity as a problem on a team? And earlier, you spoke yourselves about actionables for embracing diversity when you shared remedies after coming out of the breakout rooms. So actionables are all about creating moments as a team to connect, to share, to push and challenge each other, to step back and get perspective, and to step out of our comfort zones and see things from a different perspective. And so here, Kristi and I are going to share some tools that we use as professional coaches. And the first one is, maybe you've heard about action learning, maybe not. Action learning is a collective intelligence approach for problem solving and learning, and for which Kristi and I are both certified coaches. And the process requires all participants to share different ideas, and it hugely benefits today's multicultural, diverse teams thanks to its unique method around asking questions. And we've seen the power of this tool.
Yeah, another actionable is something called the VIA Character Strengths. It's a free online strength survey that focuses on each team member's strengths. We know that we need this diversity of thought. We each have different strengths that we need more than ever, all of our strengths. And the fact is that you are unique in the world and united in your strengths with all of humanity. And the question is, who are you at your best? So I would recommend checking out, if you haven't already, that VIA Character Strengths.
The third one was already alluded to by Magdalena in the chat box when she spoke about a rotating role of a challenger. So we call it the devil's advocate. Same idea. Can be used when the diversity may be hidden on a team. And the role of the devil's advocate or the challenger is specifically to challenge ideas, even if they agree with the team, to help shake things up and make sure that we don't fall into groupthink. And this is an explicit role for teams who are too comfortable staying in their comfort zone.
Yep. Okay, another idea is the 6 thinking hats from Edward de Bono. It's a collaborative approach, again, where participants explore various perspectives on a topic by symbolically putting on a different hat. For example, the red hat, when you are wearing the red hat, it's for emotional responses, and the yellow hat is for positive thinking. So This method encourages equal contribution without criticism or debate. And you have this comprehensive exploration of a topic.
And we're going to finish with a game. And through a variety of questions, the game Cozy, Juicy, Real creates connections and deeper understanding of one another in a team setting. It contributes to building trust and allowing to discover different viewpoints. And I've used it both in a professional setting with teams and in a private setting with friends. I can attest that it creates connections and it begins to build trust. So these are some actionables to think about and perhaps use. So we're coming to the end of this webinar on achieving inclusive leadership through TPS. And we'd like to ask, what is one action that you would be willing to commit to as a team leader, as a team member, or even on a personal level around inclusive leadership? What do you decide to commit to around embracing diversity? And we're gonna give you another minute just to think, to reflect on this. And when you feel ready, you can put your idea in the chat box. A commitment. There's lots of things coming into the chat box.
Yes, so something like reaching out to someone you don't know well to discover through objective curiosity. Yeah, wonderful. Active listening and reflection, welcoming all ideas, giving true consideration. And that makes me think of the 10% rule. When you're listening to someone who's really coming from a different place, maybe than what you're used to thinking yourself, you try to find 10% of what that person is saying that you can agree with.
Practicing compassion, showing authenticity.
Read The Fearless Organization. Yep, another one of Amy Edmondson's books. Showing authenticity, project fairness and objectivity.
Okay, so we've seen that companies are struggling specifically to develop their teams in a world of high complexity, interdependence, and growing multiculturalism. And we've seen that companies are interested in performance, team performance. Team psychological safety, as Google discovered through its major study, and as Amy Edmondson's research testifies, can play a key role in helping teams reach this performance. We've seen that when team members encourage and expect interpersonal risk-taking from other team members, the team moves faster into a learning zone. If the team is learning, it stands to reason that they will reach high performance at a quicker pace. Having a team leader who incarnates inclusive leadership and encourages embracing diversity plays a part in creating a learning environment, which ultimately leads to a performance environment. However, when all team members incarnate inclusive leadership and encourage embracing diversity, this changes the perspective considerably.
Right. So the one element of team psychological safety that we focused on today was that of accepting diversity. So we all know that complexity and uncertainty and the need for this interdependence, all of these things are here to stay. And so to achieve the goals that are demanded of us, we need everyone to express their ideas, challenge themselves and others, and be willing to talk openly about problems and failures. So we all have to strive as often as possible to create these conditions that foster the team psychological safety.
So if you're interested in learning more about the other 6 pillars which constitute team psychological safety, as well as the other 4 foundations which support and encourage these pillars, and even becoming a certified practitioner like Pamela, we regularly hold certification programs, with the next one coming up in June. And here's just a little bit of information on it. Feel free to contact us by email if you'd like to speak about it, if you're interested, if you'd like to get some more information. Pamela, is this an opportunity just to share your thoughts, having gone through the program?
I'm gonna have to jar my memory, because I did do this program in a few months ago in the first cohort. And I signed up for it because I fully believe that for a lot of things that Ben and Kristi discussed today, the world that we live in, there's so much lack of safety in so many areas that we spend so much time at work that to try and reduce the number of toxic environments and create environments that are healthy and lead to fulfillment and productivity and true inclusion, and ultimately belonging. I'm looking for win-win solutions. So there were a lot of, we discussed the foundations. We had projects that we worked on in groups to try and address what some of us had experienced as challenging situations, challenging team dynamics, and to try and figure out how we could apply a lot of what we learned to address it differently. So you will get a lot of those tools in the course.
Thanks for sharing, Pamela. And we would like to thank you all for your presence, and to thank CIETAR Europa for welcoming us.
Thank you so much.
And Kristi and I would be happy to answer questions or speak in more depth about your experiences.
Any comments, any thoughts?
Iris has her hand up.
We're listening.
Veronica, why don't you unmute yourself and share? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I have a simple question I am asking in terms of as a coach. Why don't ask a simple and coach managing or with intervention in the multicultural team? Why not to ask a simple question? What everyone needs to be safe in this space? Because as Magdalena said, there are a lot of intercultural issues in the multicultural team. Why to put a complex model and don't simply ask what do you need, or to work as a coach and with the team, what do you need to feel safe in this team?
Yeah, I think that's a great starting point for sure. And maybe some teams would like to dig deeper, but that's for sure a great place to start. It's all
Yeah,
about promoting the conversation. Yep.
I would love to contribute to that. Veronica, when I hear you say that in an ideal world, that would be helpful. But for me, that's already presuming there is team psychological safety where people feel that they could genuinely, authentically display vulnerability by saying, this is what I need. And when you're in an environment where you don't have team psychological safety, or where questions like that are not viewed as a good thing, you probably won't get a lot of useful contribution.
Yep.
Thank you,
But
Pamela.
as a coach, I think one of the competence of the coaching is to create this kind of a space to the people can speak. And probably it's not immediately, it's not I arrive in the team coaching and say, okay, let's discuss what will you need to be, but doing a coaching process, maybe the question is easy in one moment, I don't know where, to ask them maybe to create more complex models or approach. Because my experience that the people in companies, they are tired about models, about a lot of things. And they need, and we have a lack of conversation in companies. So the conversation, what we do, we bring a model, and when we talk about the conversation around the model, but simple conversation about themselves, what happened, and this is, I think, coaching will be managed. This part of the conversation probably is more sample to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's my reflection about it.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to jump in. Thank you very much for the observation and the question.
Yeah.
And it makes me realize that, and we didn't share this, Kristi and I didn't speak about it. The model is something that we share sometimes. We don't always share the model.
Exactly, yeah.
It depends on who we're working with and what is needed. Sometimes we're in a situation where we don't even mention the word team psychological safety. We're helping teams to collaborate better, and we understand the model, and the work that we do is reinforced by our knowledge of the model. It depends. So there are many situations where we wouldn't even speak about it. And your suggestion, Veronica, is something definitely that could be put in place. What do you need to be safe here as a starting point in a team coaching situation? There are other situations where people have heard about team psychological safety and they're interested in exploring it. And so we would bring in the model and we would have them work on it in a very explicit way. So it depends. It depends. So we have some people have had to or have said goodbye. They're pulling out.
Yeah, it's 7:15. Past 7:15.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions or observations you'd like to ask or share?
I just have a very technical question. That's why I was kind of pulling out on the end. Would you be sharing maybe with the recording or some of the resources you referenced, like the books and the research? That would be super helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Sure. So it was a real pleasure to be here with you all. And thank you for your earnest participation.
Yes. Yeah. I think we could definitely continue discussing for a long time. Yeah, I believe you will all receive the the slides and the recording.
Yes, we will send to all of you straight on after the webinar.
Okay, great.
If you don't have another question, I think we can land to the end of the session. I think we will invite you again because today was very, very engaging webinar, very interesting. And then we want to invite you again here in SETA Europa. And we always know achieving inclusive leadership through team psychological safety is not a one-time effort, but a continuous process that needs commitment from leaders and team members alike. It's about building a culture where everyone feels empowered to contribute their best work, fostering both individual and organizational success. And then thank you so much to Kristi, as well Benjamin Solomon and Pamela and all the attendees. I want, before we head out, to invite you as well on 25th of June for our next SETAR DEIB and DEINB learning series. And then I want to invite you as well to follow the certification, the program of certification of this team psychological safety practitioners. I think it's a very strong program certification. Nothing else. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Papa Bala.